everyone, and welcome to episode 733 of Longbox Heroes, the Lamborghini of comic book podcasts. Joe and Todd here. Todd, hello. Welcome back from New York. I'm glad you survived the experience.
I not only survived it, I think it made me stronger, Joe.
Yes?
Stronger. That which does not kill me makes me a little bit stronger.
What if it just slowly kills you a little bit more and you just don't realize it because it's your body trying to, I don't know. I had nothing there.
You got nothing. I always say we're all, slowly dying, so what does it matter? This is that upbeat show that we like to start out as.
No, this is actually going to be the upbeat show because we have a ton of news from New York this past weekend, New York Comic Con, so much so that I'm not going to tease everything individually. But we are going to maybe do a callback to one of our old episodes because of something that happened at New York this past weekend.
Could be.
Could be. Of course, we have conventions this weekend, especially a very interesting one that's not comic book, but very comic-centric, I guess. Maybe that would be the best way to explain it. My walk down Lois Lane with our good friend Becky as Lois makes a deal with the devil, or does she? She does. What we read from this past week, which would be Nightwing 118 and Where Monsters Lie, cul-de-sac #1. What we're looking forward to coming out this week. How everyone's looking to the pigskin pick'ems. Todd and Joe have issues as we read issue 25 of Gail Simone and Jim Calafiore's Secret Six with the beginning of a new story arc. TV talk with the latest episodes of The Penguin and Agatha all along. Just called Agatha, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure lots of anecdotes and tales and everything else that happened on the comic book convention floor from this past weekend.
Yes, sir.
So let's start things right off with a thing that we talked about last week. And it was one of those deals where as we were recording, it was just a tease. And then literally as we were done recording, the official announcement went out before it hit everything else. In that Jason Aaron and Mahmoud Asar's new comic at Image is going to be a mini-series called Bug Wars. Mm-hmm. And, obviously everything gets a pitch and it has a line and like, oh, it's like this meets this. But, it's like, the pitch line in Jason Aaron's write-up on it is like, think Honey, I Shrunk the Kids meets Game of Thrones.
Oh, boy.
You're right. Now, obviously, it's going to be a little bit more edgy, I would assume, than Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. A little less edgy than Game of Thrones. But it's a new Jason Aaron book. He was handing out preview copies at the floor at New York Comic Con. The book itself does not come out until February. And Todd was nice enough to not just get me a copy, but to get me a copy signed by both Jason Aaron and Mahmoud Asrar, who I am big fans of both. What do I owe you for that, by the way?
Nothing. I hear you were stumbling this week, so it's a gift from me to you.
Okay.
A pick me up, if you will, Joe.
There you go. Thank you.
But and I'm not asking for anything. If anybody was looking for them, he might still be selling them. They were $20. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But and then they were like, "Oh, do you want them signed?" And I was like, "I don't know," because I didn't realize, I didn't ask you before I did. I met Jason and his handler that was there, and I was like, "Okay, I'll take two." And I said, "I don't know." And I texted you, and you were like, "Yeah, I'll get it signed." I was like, "Oh, he wants his signed." He's like, "Well, what about you?" I said, "I prefer mine unsigned, please, unsigned for me." And he was like, "Okay, no problem." And he ended up writing a little word balloon of To Joe out of the character on the covers thing. And then he's like, the artist is right over at table. He told me what one it was at. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I asked you if you wanted that signed by him too. And I went over and I praised him up and down for his Conan and said I was going to take a small loan on the house and buy pages when they came out. And he laughed. And I told him what page I wanted to get. It was the Conan page, where it was just all like a day, like in the life of Conan, where it was like him with a bunch of women, him drinking, him in a treasure trove, like stealing stuff. And he's like, I remember the page. I was like, you just got you got all the Conan in one page, so you didn't have to do any other Conan. And he was like laughing. So I ended up getting that signed for you. But I marked out to Jason Aaron, and I had to walk away slowly because I felt like I was too creepy. But I did tell him that I enjoyed his Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, and I loved the pins, and I demanded a Casey Jones pin. And he proceeded to tell me what issue Casey would be coming back in. So I'm looking forward to that. But still, I want my pin, Jason.
Cool. Again, thank you very much. And that's one of these things. It's a Jason Aaron book. I don't need to know anything about it. The fact that I got a preview of it, between me and you, I'm probably not even going to read it.
Though I don't know if you do know that's in there, is a prose story.
Yes.
And Jason says he hasn't written a prose story in a decade or more. And I would open it to read that because that is not going to be reprinted anywhere ever again, he said. I mean, I've been told that before on things, but you never know. Maybe it's true. So you might want to read that, Joe. Yeah.
And again, at the very least, I highly doubt it'll be in the first issue when it goes on sale in February. If it is reprinted in any future trade or hardcover collections, I won't be buying those just for the prose story. So again, I have it anyway. So thank you again.
You're welcome.
Also, Marvel announced, amongst many other things, but I would say the biggest thing, of course, obviously over the summer, there was the announcement that Robert Downey Jr. is going to be playing Doctor Doom in the upcoming next phase, wave, whatever you want to call it, of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, of course, they're going to be doing a big Doom event in 2025 called Rise of Emperor Doom. It had been teased for weeks, if not months. But it is being done at the very least by the writer of the current ongoing Fantastic Four book. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Yes, Ryan North is listed here as the writer. Of course, you got your main book. You got your crossover books. You got all your other jazz that's going to be coming up. There's another February event. And this is essentially, what happens when Doom is the new Sorcerer Supreme. And it's not a fantasy or imaginary tale. It's happening in the proper Marvel 616 universe.
And they said it was, because I did go to the panel, which they gave away a free comic book, Joe.
Just one? Just one copy?
One per customer, or at least one per customer per door. So I ended up going to that, and they said it was going to be, I think they said it was going to be an 8 or 9 month event. And I'm like, I don't care. Yes, please. And it might be the one event that I may buy all the tie-in issues just to have. I may go Doom crazy, but when they were showing the slides and stuff for it, I was like, oh my God, yes. Like, finally my moment has come to be happy with the Marvel Universe. And I did like him saying, he's like, I'm writing him as, he's like, Doom's taking over and he's going to save the world. And that should be a good thing if you're going to save the world and make it a better place. But Doom doesn't want to make the world a better place. This is the way he's writing him, at least. He's not making the world a better place to make the world a better place. He's making the world a better place so people can say Doom made the world a better place, if you know what I mean. It's pure hubris. And I immediately went, I understand you, and I will read your crossover.
So the miniseries, like the thing that ties everything together, is only a 5-issue deal. Whether or not that means there's not going to be like a one-shot that comes before it or a one-shot that comes after it, new titles or whatever. So worst case scenario, it's 5 months worth. I'll probably get the main miniseries to try it. I like Doom. He's a good guy. He's good at sports, right?
And they showed it. I think what's making it, extending it, is Fantastic Four is going to prime the pump.
Yeah.
So if it's 5 months for the mini, maybe 3 months leading up to, if that makes any sense. Like, because he did say that Doom has built a wall around Latveria, and all Reed is trying to do is find out what's behind that wall, what's Doom up to. And that's what the next run of Fantastic Four is going to be, and it's called The Prelude to like that. So I was like, okay, fair enough. I already get FF, not a problem.
Cool. Also announced, we had teased here as well, was mentioned in the Jason Aaron newsletter. Now, nothing was announced of Jason Aaron writing at IDW, but they did officially announce their horror imprint. Mm-hmm. I know we've been talking about IDW quite a bit and what their marketing strategy is looking to be for the coming years. They are going to have a focus on some of the existing horror stuff that they've published before, older stuff like 30 Days of Night. Newer, which was, one that kind of came and went for us just because whatever reason, Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. Mm-hmm. But then they made a deal with Paramount where they're doing a bunch of properties from there, everything from Event Horizon to Twilight Zone to A Quiet Place and stuff like that.
Right.
Now, as big as a deal as this is, obviously trying to get on board with, the horror imprints, IDW continuing their relationship with Paramount, who they already have had a finger in with the Star Trek books and the Ninja Turtle books. Is this all a way to distract people from their new logo?
I don't think it was, but I think they hope that's what it is now.
Yes.
That new logo's awful. I'm just going to say.
So the IDW did roll out a new logo, right? Mm-hmm. And it is very bad. I have no idea what it's like. Once you explain it to me and like really explain it to me and you're looking at it, I kind of get what they were trying to go for.
Right.
But it fails on every conceptual and visual level that you could think of.
Yes. I don't know if you were around when I was discussing it at the shop recently, as early as earlier today. I said that I've heard a lot of people talk who are designers or art, people, concept things. And they said, no matter what, if you take it to a bunch of executives and you give them 4 choices, without a doubt, the executives will always pick the worst choice. And a lot of art designers will always throw one bad one in just to make the other 3 pop. And 9 times out of 10, that's the one the executives pick. And they did. And then these guys, when it went all sideways, IDW came out and said, yeah, we're gonna take one of the other logos that this person designed. They used his name and we're gonna go with that. And I was like, maybe that's what you should have done right from the start. And I hope one of the other ones is better than this one, because if it's not, you got problems.
Yeah, it literally, it does not tell you what the company is. It gives you nothing. It's not helpful in the slightest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Yep.
So that's all the other company news. Mm-hmm. All the other company that's not DC. Todd, is DC back? Does DC have Riz? Is DC cooking? Is DC all the other buzzwords that the kids use?
I think, like 2 old men, we should just read all the buzzwords out to people. But
I do that on the other. I do that on the other show.
But yeah, I think DC might be back for a couple of reasons, Joe.
Yep. So Todd and I have, when we look at our poll list, especially in 2024. I would say, very DC centric. It's been kind of, hitting for us. We talked, looking back at the beginning of the year where we had picked up not 1, but 2 big company-wide crossovers for the first time in a long time in DC. And that's something, right?
Right.
But, starting small, going big, they announced a new Aquaman book written by someone that we are a big fan of from the work on the Flash book, the Green Lantern book, the current Flash Gordon book over at Mad Cave, and that would be Jeremy Adams with art by John Timms. This is coming out in January. It got spoiled in the January solicitations, but Jeremy Adams on an Aquaman book. It's supposed to be like a whole big like power set revamp and new
Mhm.
characters and a whole new thing. So again, it was just one of those things. I will give an Aquaman series a try if it's a writer that I'm vaguely familiar with, let alone a writer that I am a pretty big fan of. Jeremy Adams is creeping over to that line of folks that it's just like, you tell me the date his book comes out and I'm there.
Yep. And I was at Tom's table when Tim Sheridan, he did the Alan Scott miniseries recently, last year actually. And Jeremy Adams were walking by and they saw us and they're like, hey, you guys, they know Tom, right? And Jeremy was like, hey, Todd, I remember you from last year talking, like meeting you. I was like, oh, cool. I said, I have a couple of questions for you. He goes, well, I'm going back to my table because I have a signing in like a half hour or 20 minutes. He said, come on over and I'll answer them for you. And I went over and I started talking to him. And I mean, I just gushed over the things that we do, like Flash Gordon and everything. And I said, do you have anything coming up? And he's like, oh, let me tell you. And that's how I found out he was doing an Aquaman book, was from Jeremy Adams, right? And I go, oh, that's cool. What's going on? And he starts to tell me, he goes, all right, so basically Arthur goes back to Atlantis to like fix things up, to become the leader again, because things are going sideways. And something happens. And it's, I really want to tell you, but I can't. He goes, oh man, I really want to tell you. And I'm like, so like, he goes, it kind of goes bad. Like two things go. He goes, I can't give it up. I can't say it. And I'm like, so all I need to know is Aquaman goes back to rule Atlantis and things don't quite go as you expect. And he goes, yes. He goes, that's it. And I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm just buying that book. And he's like, thank you. And then I proceeded to praise him on, Flash Gordon and Green Lantern and all that stuff. And he was a really nice guy. So, but I'm looking forward to his Aquaman as much as you are, if not more, Joe.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. We're not much of an interview show, but I'd love to have Jeremy on the show just to shoot the breeze with them,
You know what? I've talked to him because I never forget this part of the conversation last year. I was like, oh, blah, 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 big fan. Because I did all this stuff and said all this stuff. And he goes, and I go, and I have a podcast, and I go, I'm not going to ask you on because don't worry, I'm not asking you to be on because I know every time I mention a podcast to a creator, their eyes glaze over. He goes, no. He's like, hit me up whenever. He's like, you sound like you really enjoy the stuff. Like, we'll talk. And I'm like, okay, we can do this. But you know me, I'm like, I'm not going to set up a date. But Jeremy said he'd be on. So
yeah. Cool. Again, doesn't happen very often, but I might have to try to make that happen,
Yep.
Somebody else I'd love to have on the show, but I don't think he's taking any podcast interviews. And that would be that it was also announced that our beloved Jimmy Pistol, a.k.a. James Gunn, is going to be co-writing a comic book with Tim Seeley, Mitch Gerads on art. It's just a one-shot. It's supposed to bridge the gap between the first season and second season of Peacemaker, entitled Peacemaker Presents Vigilante and Eagly Double Feature.
Oh my God. So good. I mean that in a good way, by the way.
Yes. Tim Seeley, underrated journeyman guy. He had and again, getting in more of the kids' buzzwords, he had a sneaky good run on Nightwing when it was retitled as Grayson for a while. If you remember that, when they made Dick Grayson a secret agent or whatever it was.
Right. Wasn't Tom King involved in that slightly too?
That I don't remember. That might have been very early Tom King stuff before he became like capital T, capital K Tom King, right?
Right.
But like I said, Tim Seeley really good, Mitch Gerads really good, and Jimmy Pistol doing a book. Now, he had also said this weekend on social media that they are not going to be doing like any sort of tie-in comics to any of the movies or other TV shows that are coming out, but Peacemaker, I think, fits a little bit different. It's a Jimmy Pistol pet project. So I'm okay with this. No release date on this, of course, because all of it hinges on the release date of season 2 of Peacemaker, which we don't have yet.
Right. And I would just like to backtrack on one thing. Grayson 1-17 was written and co-written with Tim Seeley and Tom King.
That's pretty, there you go. Pretty cool.
Yep. Okay. Cool.
No, I was gonna say that's like the Bendis Jonathan Hickman thing on Secret Warriors sort of thing,
Right.
where arguably in 2024, Jonathan Hickman's name maybe carries a little bit more cachet than Bendis's does, you know?
Right. But back then they were probably because that was 2014-16 kind of era. So Tom King wasn't Tom King yet. So I think they were probably at the same level at that time.
I think Tim Seeley might have been higher at that point.
Yes.
But yeah.
If we were going to do that of the two, it was definitely.
Yeah, he definitely had more name value anyway. Coming off Hack Slash over at Devil's Due and then getting like the more mainstream stuff. But anyway, one more thing. And again, I'm not going to say that Jimmy Pistol did this himself. Like he didn't code the site or anything.
Right.
But it was one of those things that I missed. And Todd was nice enough to point out to me. Shop.dc.com. Not only are they like actively, we've been asking for it since it came back. San Diego Comic-Con when they brought back the classic DC Bullet logo. The second best DC logo that they've ever had.
I'm quitting this show.
No, it's like 1A and 1F with the other one.
Yeah.
No, not Z. But they have a bunch of merchandise because I just saw the Creature Commando stuff and I'm like, I don't want to listen. Creature Commandos, that's cool, but I want something with the DC Bullet logo on it. And Todd's like, you idiot, they had stuff with it. And he took me to the site and showed me how he navigates the internet, which is, oh boy.
Stop it.
Things are reasonably priced to strangely priced, like $25 for a t-shirt sounds about right, $40 for a hoodie sounds about right, $45 for a hat.
Listen, that hat is a DC logo, 3D, puff embroidered, new era, 940 adjustable cap. Look at all that's going on, Joe.
Now, I will say, if they did have the flex fit hats for my big, dumb, fat head, I would absolutely be buying one at $45. But yeah, when we're done here and everything's nice and wrapped up and everything else, I'll be picking up a DC logo shirt for myself for weekly purchases.
I'm surprised you're not going to grab a DC mug for yourself, too, to drink your coffee out of.
I need a much bigger mug than the one they have there.
All right, then put your pens in it. I don't know.
There you go. I have a Pokemon Guzzlord container because I got a lot of pens.
Yeah, and that was one of those that they dropped while I was at the show, or I would have put it in the Discord or tweeted it out at you. You know what I mean?
But maybe what I'm sure DC felt was the biggest news, but at least on this show is the second biggest news, that it was official, that it was rumor and innuendoed for the last week or so, that starting with issue 158 of Batman, Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee are returning to the mainline Batman book to kick off a sequel to Hush.
Hush 2, Electric Boogaloo. Actually,
it's Hutchusha, according to the shirts that they were giving away to promote it.
God bless you, Joe.
There is going to be a preview of it in the upcoming Justice League Unlimited, which is very smart because that's going to be the new flagship team book. And if you weren't convinced to pick that up, hey, get like a prelude for Hush in there too, right? You know? I was and have been getting Batman for quite some time. The main Batman book. I will continue to get this. Hush, the first one, it's not the best Batman story of all time, but I would say in the modern era, because again, you're talking about this a book that when the sequel comes out, it's celebrating the 24th anniversary of the first Hush storyline.
Feels so old right now.
I know, but it's a good starter Batman story. It's beautiful art, it's straightforward, and it literally has every big name Batman villain in it. And even Superman's in it too, you know?
Right. Only one small problem with it, but I won't mention it in case you haven't read it.
Well, again, I don't want to... And that's another thing. Whatever our feelings are about Hush, okay, the story, a lot of it hinges on the end of the book.
Yep.
And we sit here in a book that's nearly 24 years old, and we're like, yeah, we're still not going to spoil it on you, right?
Well, you know what? And I do this for this because there are a lot of people who are discussing it in the Discord lately saying, should I read Hush?
Right.
And if they were in the Discord, maybe they listen to the show. And I'm like, you know what? Only because they mentioned it. Otherwise, I would go after it right now. You know what I mean? But though that being said, I'm hoping this sequel fixes that.
I was thinking that I wonder if they're going to, but I think some of the players are either no longer mentioned anymore,
right,
or have been changed and altered so much over the last 24 years,
right,
that I don't know if they would fit into that mold anymore. But it'll be interesting to see what they try to do.
Such a waste of a costume. Oh my God.
It was a great design. It was great everything, and Jim Lee, one of the most popular artists of the last 40 years, arguably.
And, definitely the last 33, 34 years.
He's got the best-selling Marvel book of all time, right?
That's right. Nobody has a higher sales than him on a Marvel book.
No matter how hard they try.
That is true.
But I would say the big news coming out of New York Comic Con this past weekend, it was stuff that had been teased and bandied about for about a month or so ago. Actually, almost a year ago, actually. My apologies. About a year or so ago, there was rumblings that they were eventually going to be bringing this back. And after they had unceremoniously gotten rid of it back in June of 2019, as of January 2025, it is official. Vertigo is back, baby.
Yes, it is. And I'm very happy about that.
Yes.
I don't know which I'm more happier about. The Season of Doom or Vertigo coming back.
Yes.
But
so there were certain higher-ups on the Warner side for DC that made this decision. And when you're looking at a company that's this big, at Warner at the top, a lot of times there's a shift at that top of the line there. And when the people who came in and got rid of something go, maybe the thing that they got rid of comes back a lot of times. I will say this was definitely a short-sighted thing. It was in lieu of labeling things as, pun intended, Black Label. I guess their thought process behind it was by doing stuff as Black Label, they could kind of have their cake and eat it too, in doing books like more recent stuff like American Vampire, Swamp Thing, your classic Vertigo titles under the Black Label line, but then they could also take some of your mainline DC characters and do edgier, grittier, darker, violent, whatever stories under that Black Label imprint without it being looked at as a Vertigo book, which again, I don't know why there would be a negative stigma to say like a Rogues book, because there was that Rogues Flash book.
Right, the Black Label one, yeah.
Yeah, that ended up being a Black Label. Like, would that have sold better or worse or gotten more notoriety if it was just a Vertigo book, right?
Right, even though
would they have even bothered to put it as Vertigo and just say it's a mature reader's book? And that's essentially what this was supposed to be. But I think they saw how important the Vertigo branding was to not just old-timers like you and I, but you have to bear in mind that for the last however many years it was, that Vertigo was like that prestige title at DC.
I'm with you. I hope they bring back Karen Berger. Let's do that too. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But it's all over. Though I will say this, I'm looking forward to this, but as this was going on, it made me think, Joe. So I went back into our archives and I was like, okay, so this happened. And I ended up looking when they defunct Vertigo, and that was in June of 2019. So I ended up thinking, we did talk about this, and I believe we may have speculated when, that it was coming back and when would it come back. So I dipped back and I ended up using the ringtone maker to clip a little bit of the show. And this is what we said about it back then. So good. So good.
And this is someone else who said this, and I wish I remember who said it, but I want to attribute this to them. I give this 3 years at most.
Black Label?
Vertigo being gone.
I hope so, because
3 years will be the 30th anniversary.
I really hope so, because if we ever get another Neil Gaiman Sandman mini,
Yep.
which is a possibility, and I buy an Absolute, I don't want my Absolutes to go to Death, the High Cost of Living, Absolute Vertigo, Sandman 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Absolute Vertigo, the other miniseries that they have, and then the new Sandman miniseries, Black Label.
No.
That's just wrong. You know what I mean?
Right. 3 years is going to be the 30th anniversary of Vertigo. They're going to do like a Vertigo month or a Vertigo event where they try to wrangle back whoever they can, because it's been, how can I miss you if you don't go away?
New Coke time.
Right. And then some suit at DC Warner Brothers is going to be like, oh, I didn't know this Vertigo thing was that popular. Maybe we should bring it back. And
from here on out, I'm calling Black Label New Vertigo.
There you go.
And then when it's going to be Vertigo Classic. That's what's going to happen.
Well, we were off by a bit, right? We were kind of looking more toward the anniversary of the debut of Vertigo. This was even before Previewing the Past was really a thing. Previewing the Past was just like a glimmer in both our eyes in June of 2019. And again, I'm not saying that we're right, because we're not. We're wrong. But I could certainly feel that the pandemic could have delayed this rolling out.
Yeah, I'll say this. I think we were spot on, plus or minus a pandemic.
I know there were some creators out there, and I don't have the tweets in front of me. I was trying to search them out, and I just couldn't find them. That when this did happen back in 2019, that they did nail this and say it'll be back by 2025.
Right. Now, Joe, when does Jimmy Pistol tweet out the Vertigo t-shirts?
If they put back into print, we talk about it on Previewing the Past all the time. We look through the graffiti design section, and there's all these cool Marvel shirts, right? And just within the last year, 1994, there's been a lot more graffiti designs, specifically Vertigo, specifically Sandman shirts. Shop.dc.com put all of those Sandman shirts back into print.
Right. And give me my Vertigo logo shirt, too.
Give me the Vertigo logo shirt. Give me the Vertigo logo on the sleeve. Do something. But they have a shopdc.com set back up. I don't know if it's direct to garment. I don't know what it is. I'm going to be the canary in the coal mine on this one to get the first shirt from it of our group of people. And I will certainly report back. But it feels good that Vertigo is back.
Yes, and we joked around about this. The DC Bullet logo. Vertigo is back. I'm enjoying Superman. I'm enjoying Batman. They're doing a lot of great things with comics. Like, is DC winning right about now? They may not be winning completely, but I think they're on their way to be winning.
Yeah. They got a good run. We've been here before. We've seen DC trip and fall at the 1 yard line.
Yep. The turf monster got him.
Now we got, I think, and again, say what you will about the comics, okay? Your 1-2 punch of this is going to be how well received Creature Commandos is, and how well received and the quality of the first Jimmy Pistol Superman movie.
Right.
Those are your two goalposts. Those are your two sign markers to point to see, like, okay, these two things are like the official beginning of that side of things. Because the comic side could kind of support itself and live or die whether the movies and TV shows are good or not.
Right.
But if the comics are good, and the TV is good, and the movies are good, as we sit here, I think it was like 11 years ago that like the Marvel Cinematic Universe really started to hit.
Okay.
Like we had Iron Man, we had Captain America, we had Thor, we had Avengers, and those were all successes. But then like here it is like about 11 years later where everything started hitting and like the machine was in place and everything was moving. And then again, of course, we talk maybe the pandemic kind of put a halt on that. Maybe Eternals put a halt on that. No one knows, right?
Right.
They could have.
I don't know which made the world sicker, Eternals or COVID.
Right. But as dyed-in-the-wool DC guys, if you had to make us choose, we're creator first, company second. I think I could speak for both of us and say that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to make me choose a company, I'm choosing DC.
I am. I'm creator like you, with the rare exception on one or two characters. That I'm character driven on them, but of the companies that has my heart, it's DC.
Yep. So again, ton of news. There's conventions this weekend, of course. We have the San Diego Comic Fest, not to be confused with Comic Con. Jill Thompson and Mark Russell are going to be at that one.
Mm-hmm.
Memphis Comic Expo. This is a big one. Tons and tons of name creators are going to be at this. The aforementioned Mitch Gerard's going to be there. Mark Bagley, Larry Hama, Ron Mars, James O'Barr, friend of the show, Kyle Starks, known supernatural investigator Freddie Williams III is going to be there. Scott Collins, Kyle Hotz, Jim Calafiore. If I was not in my current situation and near Memphis, you got Mark Bagley, you got Kyle Starks, Freddie Williams, Scott Collins, who I love, Kyle Hotz, who I love. Like, this is a convention that I think I secretly booked somehow. I don't know how I did it, but I did it.
Right. If you were still going to cons, this was a con you would go to.
That's correct. Yes. That's a great way to put things. Mm-hmm. Now, also this weekend, Todd, and again, my apologies. I got to see where in New Jersey this is taking place. And it's not so much as a comic book convention. It's actually happening at the Hanover Marriott Hotel in beautiful downtown scenic Whippany, New Jersey.
Right.
Creation Entertainment presents Salute to the Boys. So this is a convention that is specifically geared around The Boys TV show.
Right.
Aaron Moriarty, who is Starlight, is going to be there. Karen Fukuhara, who is Kamiko, is going to be there. Tomer Capone, who is Frenchie, is going to be there. Laz Alonso, who's MM, is going to be there. Jesse Usher, who's A-Train, is going to be there. Chase Crawford, who's the Deep, is going to be there. Aya Cash, who's Stormfront, is going to be there. Colby Minfie, who's Ashley Barrett, is going to be there. So it's like just cast people in meet and greets with people from The Boys. And they're encouraging like people to come and saying like, this is less of a comic book convention and more of a boys convention.
Right.
And I don't mean I don't mean boys and like men only. I mean the television show The Boys.
Right. I'm fine with that. They've done a few how long have we had Star Trek conventions, Joe?
Okay. So yes, we've had Star Trek conventions. We talked a couple of weeks ago, there was that X-Men one out in like the Midwest, Minneapolis, Minnesota, somewhere in that neck of the woods. There's never been a Spider-Man convention, as far as I know, because if there was, I would have been there.
Right.
There's never been a Batman convention. There's never been a Flash convention. There's probably been a Walking Dead convention.
Right.
But the Boys one. I'm not saying this is good and I'm not saying this is bad. Maybe I'm thinking, is interest in the Boys TV show at this moment popular enough to warrant an entire convention? And they got heavy hitters, they got big names, but they don't got the big names. There's no milk drinking photo op with Homelander, right?
Right.
Would you go to this?
Yes, if it was close enough.
Mm-hmm.
I would go get my picture taken with Kamiko and Aya Cash and Ashley. I don't know why I'm jumping out at those ones. Starlight, I would get those photos. But if Homelander was there, I would get that one.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's good. I just hope. I think the reason Homelander isn't there and Anthony Stars, you don't want to attract the wrong kind of crowd asking what you want to talk about. So
I would ask him about him doing the mobile game ad.
You would do that, and I would ask him. I would have about 30 minutes of cape acting questions. So I would. I'd be like, sit down. We're going to be a while.
I got one more thing to mention, not so much as news, but we're talking about conventions. We're just off in New York this past weekend. And it was a late item to add to the list. The fist fight for the Peach Momoko Spawn cover?
Yeah. That I did not witness any of that go down.
Okay.
But I reading into it of what happened was it was once again fans fighting retailers. So so after all retailers in line at the Peach line for sketches and stuff last year. So they yanked the people out of line. No more Artist Alley badges, no more exhibitor badges. You have to be a fan. So this year, do you know what the exhibitors did, Joe?
They bought fan badges.
Yes, but the exhibitor badge gets them in early, so they beat all the lines. They go to wherever they got to go, and they're first. And they start, when the doors open, there was somebody in the interview who was like, I was 8th online to get into the con. I spent all night outside in the cold waiting, and I run to the setup to get it at 10 a.m. on Thursday, and there's 90 people in line for 100 comics or whatever, and I might not be doing the math right, but that's what happened. And it was the retailers buying a pass and getting in early. And I'm like, now you have no right to yell at the exhibitor because you're like, I bought a pass, so that gets me the right to get this and you can't have it. Well, now, yeah, I have an exhibitor pass and that gets me in early, but I have the pass you have. So are we on equal ground now? And so that's where the fist fight starts. And I'm like, I know what the next opportunity is, Joe. I see it coming down the line because I was in line for a signing, which I'll talk about later, and I'm 7th in line, and the person managing that line was saying, okay, we have you, but I have to tell you, we have people with AMA badges and, medical things where they now have a sticker on their badge that say they're medical, and they get bumped to the front of the line. So look for exhibitors next year with fan passes that have medical exemptions on them. And they're going to be the first in line. And next year, people are going to be beating up people who have medical badges. It's getting crazy, Joe. But that's the new opportunity. And I don't know. I might be eligible for a medical badge. I'll have to look into that.
Now, I wanted to bring this up because I don't know if you saw the response from the retailer who commissioned the cover.
No, I did not on that.
Okay. So credit to Bleeding Cool. Rich Johnson reached out to Brian Murphy of Spectral Comics. And I'm going to read his quotes verbatim. So there's no miscommunication or confusion or otherwise, right? He said that people started lining up at 5 a.m. to get the chance to get the cover.
Right.
He says there was no fight or fists being thrown. Someone's wife got bumped. The gentleman then got shoved by that wife's husband. Brian Murphy stepped in, made them apologize, or they'd be removed from the line. It was free. Okay, so that's number one. Now, number two, they didn't start selling the comic until 10:15 because we had to wait until the line behaved in an orderly fashion.
Oh, my God.
Every bag was checked, and I told every person that was there before 10 that no line would form before and to keep it moving, even though there were people that were milling around earlier. I even cleared them away from my booth and the aisle They ended up pooling up in an area and moving around. I told them, this is not a line. I believe part of the issue is when people came in, they assumed it was the line. It wasn't. And it was a 15 to 20 yard group of people that were hovering around my table.
Yep.
When I was able to get them to form into a line, certain parties ignored requests to conform to a single person line. However, once we started pulling back from the line, where attendees politely followed our requests, and the ADA badges and children's badges, they started being more compliant. Mm-hmm. We then pulled we pulled 5 people at a time, checking every badge. No one was wearing an exhibitor badge, but of course, I heard some bought Friday badges just to get this book. At that point, it's out of my control.
Yep.
So he knew what sort of mess he was going to be dealing with. Kudos to him, obviously, for doing his best to try to get things done in a orderly fashion. And, to kind of debunk the rumors that there was a fist fight.
Right. I'll say good for him for being aggressive in taking control. Do you know what I mean? Like with the bumping of the wife and the problem and stuff like that, shut that down as quick as possible, because you'd have to be some kind of lunatic to try to start a fist fight at a Comic-Con, man. That's just not good. But
probably a Mets fan or something.
Probably. But I don't know. I feel there was a bit of sensationalism there, but there was a bit of truth. And I think it's only a matter of time before someone gets curb stomped for something at a Comic-Con. You know what I mean?
Thank you, Richard Ojeda. But you didn't tell me the story about going to the Creature Commandos experience.
I had
We're
a
talking
good
about
time.
conventions, it fits in here, sure.
Yes, sure. But I went there. I went over, and they were giving away the first day to the first 100 people was a Creature Commando canteen, which was just a cheap plastic canteen with Creature Commandos written on one side and Task Force M on the other side, which I think stands for Task Force Monster, which was kind of cool. So we'll see where that goes. But if you look at my Twitter, they have I have the pictures up where they set it up like a prison. So there was like gates and cameras up and kind of cool stuff. And you got in line and you went in. So while I was there on the first day, I was one of the first 100 people in line. I wasn't sure if I was, but there was a guard there who everybody keeps calling Vigilante without his costume from the Peacemaker.
Sure.
But he was a really nice guy. We ended up chatting. I was like, am I the first 100? He goes, I'm pretty sure you are. And he goes, I'm not going to tell you get in line. I mean, there was only like 15 people in line in front of me. And he was like, get in. I think you're going to get one. But I ended up asking how he was doing, and we chatted. I ended up making him laugh, and we were having a good old time. So he's the guy on the outside, and he ends up telling me, like, today, the first 100 get the flask, the canteen, the rest get dog tags, and we have 7 altogether. And I'm like, oh, okay. And there was a lady there who was like, oh yeah, we have 7 different dog tags. I'm in charge of the booth. And I said, oh, are you doing it, certain ones each day, or are you doing them all at once? She goes, I'm not sure how we're doing it. And I said, well, the Titans booth last year had different pins and temporary tattoos, and they gave different ones out each day so people would come back. She's like, that's a great idea. I wish somebody would told me about that before. So she was trying to start making sets and seeing what they were going to do. Then she stopped. So I was like, oh, but that was such a great idea. Maybe you should give the guy who did it all 7 as a thank you. But I didn't. I went through the line, I got the canteen, and I left. And there was a different guard inside at the time who was handling stuff. He handing out the canteens. So I was like, this happened, that happened. Sunday's the last day. I was like, I never went back for any of the dog tags. I said, I'll go back and get one. So I get in line, and the guard that I was talking to outside isn't outside, but the guard who was inside's outside. So I'm like, I wonder if they just swap positions. So I go in, and I go through the line again. And as I make the corner, the guy I was having a great time is sitting at the booth. And I walk in, I go, I know this guy. And he turns and he goes, "Oh, how you doing?" We're chatting. We were like saying stuff. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm here." And he's like, "Take whatever you want. Like, like try to get a set if you want from them." And they had 3 boxes on the table and 3 boxes on the floor. And me and Josh went through. And I was like, "Oh, they have this one. They have this one. They have this one. We're missing 3. Or missing 4. I'm sorry, 3. And then we're missing 4. And he goes, "Oh, well, there's a set of 7. I'm like, "Okay." And he ends up picking up the boxes off the floor, and he's like going through. He's like, "Who do you need?" And I'm like, "I need Rick Flag Sr., and I need this one." And we're going through it. So me and Josh end up getting a set each. And he looks over, and all the people are like looking, and he goes, "Well, whoa. I can't do this for everybody. I'm doing it for this guy." He goes, "Because he's a frequent customer," and he winks at me. "He's been here a lot." I'm like, if I've been here a lot, why do I want all 7 at one time? But I'm going with it, Joe.
Yes, and.
Right? So he ends up handing me all 7. He goes, and they're all like, but, and he goes, "You know what? I got to go outside and check on something." So he leaves, and another guard comes in, fake guard, and he goes outside, and I go outside like after the thing. There was the video thing that you do, but it was kind of goofy. So I go outside, and he's standing out there, and I went, "Thanks for that, man." Right? I go, "And I'm sorry if I got you in Dutch." He goes, "No, you didn't, but I had to go outside because all of them would have hit me up for the things." He goes, "But you were a blast, so I ended up doing it for you." I said, "Oh, that's really cool. If you ever need anything," he goes, "We do, I'd appreciate, a big gratuity," right? And I'm like, "I don't care." I start reaching in my pocket for money, right? And he goes, No, we're union here. If I get caught taking tips," he goes, "I could get bounced." And I'm like, even asking for them, I can get in trouble. And I said, "Oh, I'm not going to say anything. Like, whatever. I know it was a joke." And he's like, yeah. He goes, "I'm just glad, you had a good time and blah, blah, blah. And you came back and we chatted a little bit." And it was like, boom. And I got all 7 of the dog tags in one sitting. It was fantastic. I like those stories. And I always say this. I have like 10 stories wherever I go that I talk to these people. I always try to be nice. And I always say, I know what you go through with these people. I just want to make your experience like good when I'm coming through. And I'll tell you, 9 times out of 10, they are super appreciative, and they go above and beyond just for you. You know what I mean?
Kill them with kindness.
I do, and I got a set of dog tags that I don't know what they're going for. Got to check on eBay. So,
oh goodness, I'd wait till the show hits, and if it's a success, then
Oh, I'm holding on to them. I'm investing in Creature Commando dog tags.
Gotcha. But we'll have the links to the show notes, of course. The links to the conventions in the show notes. With information about the soon-to-be-named network at soon-to-be-named-network.tumblr.com. Anytime any of the shows go live, of course, you could find them at their own individual sites. You could find them at the podcatcher of your choice, or you can get them in a one-stop shop, handy-dandy place, soon-to-be-named-network.tumblr.com. And, of course, that includes this show that you're listening to right now, Longbox Heroes, Longbox Heroes After Dark, Halls of Warriors 3, Profane Arguments, Wings on Wings, Porch Talk, We Need Wrestling, Final Wrestling Place, At Odds with Wrestling, and I think that's everything.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody from them shows show up on other shows and they let me know they were on those other shows, I'll let you know over at soon-to-be-named-network.tumblr.com. Be sure to check out our friends and the stuff that they're up to in and around the internet. Go check out our friend Mike Sterling's blog over at progressiveruin.com. And, social media-wise, go follow Mike on Blue Sky. Mm-hmm. He puts fun, interesting stuff up on the blog, but he puts weirder, more out there stuff up on his Blue Sky. If you're looking for an excuse to change your social media provider, that's a great reason to do so.
Right.
Go check out our friend Kevin's blog over at Hellion'sTeam.com. Go check out Rick Williams' The Chop Shop at freekaratechops.storeenvy.com. Go check out Jason Sandberg's Jupiter on his Indiegogo page. Go check out Chris Runt's Battle Monsters over at fortressofcomicnews.com. Our friend Davey of the band Cave People has his own self-published comics over at cavedomaincomics.com. Be sure to check those out as well. And if you do not have a comic book store in your area, or you do not have a good comic book store in your area, Let our store be your store. Comics on the Green. I have the Facebook page linked up there. Dave and the crew will let you know when the new books have come in, when you can come and get the new books, when the final order cutoff dates are for the latest and greatest books that will be coming out here in the near future. And you could sign up for their mail order subscription service, get your books mailed to you weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. And if you do, there's a chance you can get a sketch in the package from our good friend Becky, who we're going to turn things over to now for My Walk Down Lois Lane.
Welcome back to My Walk Down Lois Lane. It is still spooky season. Halloween is my favorite holiday, so let's have a two-part Halloween special. This is issue 102 from 1970. Lois is at the Metropolis Sports Arena for the Parade of Rare Animals when she spots a man who, and I quote, looks like he stepped right out of Arabian Nights, walking by her with his pet tiger. In a move Sigmund and Freud eventually saw coming, the tiger runs straight for Lois's throat. As it's about to strike, the owner calls him back and the tiger comes purring to his master. Lois thanks the handsome stranger and asks how she can repay him. He says his name is Satdev, and he will accept thanks with her company for dinner, and she asks him about himself. Okay, in a nutshell, because this is from 1970 and I don't want to get cancelled, Satdev is the longest-running leader in his country, a place of eternal heat and sun. He has rejected all of the women in his land because he needs a perfect bride to rule beside him. Lois is intrigued by this and agrees to dinner. On the way there, Lois hears over the radio that Clark has scooped up another Superman story. Lois tells Satdev she will literally sell her soul to Satan for the eyewitnessing scoop that Clark gets, even though she's 40% responsible for the nonsense in Metropolis and Jimmy's like the other 60. Satdev says maybe the devil is listening and places his ring out of the car window, causing a building to collapse that Superman has to put back together so Lois can take a picture. At dinner, Lois tells Satdev he didn't have to rent out the entire restaurant just for her, and he tells her money is like grains of sand to him, don't worry about it. The entire city is then struck by a blackout, and Satdev tells Lois to make another wish to Satan, and maybe he can fix it. When the lights come back on in the restaurant and nowhere else, Satdev tells her it's her beautiful face lighting up a room, and she falls for it. The comic then cuts to Superman getting electrified in order to restore the power to the city, and then spots Lois and Satdev on their date. The next day they go to the beach for some swimming. Lois tells Satdev to remove his turban, and he tells her he can't for religious reasons and no other possible maybe satanic reasons at all, and the two of them kiss. When they come out of the ocean, Lois thinks she spots hoof prints in the sand, but dismisses them because Satdev is drinking a glowing drink from his native land, and he needs to take a nap for a while. When he's asleep, Lois immediately removes his turban, even though he told her religious reasons, and spots devil horns sprouting from the top of his head. She then removes his shoes to show his cloven feet. Satdev wakes up and blasts Lois with his ring. He's Satan himself, and since Lois has made some wishes, she has essentially sold her soul to him, and now he owns her. She immediately grows horns, a tail, and cloven feet. Superman is taking Lana on a joy flight for her birthday, and he spots Satdev dragging Lois across the beach into a cave. He confronts Satdev, who tells Superman that Lois is his now, and the two of them have a magic ring and I-beam battle, with Clark protecting Lana until Lois is struck by a bolt of the devil's lightning bouncing off of Clark's pectorals, gets hit with them, and dies. The last panel is Superman holding Lois, telling Lana he has made the supreme blunder of his life by protecting Lana over Lois, and now she's dead with the devil running off giggling. So yeah, Satdev is just Satan and devil put together, because, you know, height of 1970s naming of supervillains. So next week we will find out if Lois is really dead, or the bride of Satan, or if Superman blames Lana for all of it. Tune in next week for more.
Thank you very much, Becky. Of course, we're getting into, still 60s technically, even though it's 1970, with this two-part cliffhanger. As soon as I heard the name of the character in this story with Lois Lane as Satdev, I knew exactly where this was all going.
I didn't. The reveal floored me, Joe. Oh my good. I was like, oh, I thought it was going to be sat nav or something like GPS. No, I it's just funny when it's like blatantly obvious. And I do this joke a lot. They all can't be Del Rusk, Joe. They all can't be. You know?
That's true. They all can't.
Right. But that's fantastic. I like the fact that Lois Lane doesn't care for anybody's religious boundaries. Just taking off turbans willy-nilly when they shouldn't be. And I do like Becky's math, but I would say, all right, 40 or 38% is Lois Lane causing problems. 58% is Jimmy. I would give Lex a solid 4% in there. Like for causing havoc. Lois and Jimmy aren't doing it all. Occasionally a villain shows up. But otherwise perfect.
Right. It's mostly Lois getting herself into trouble and then Superman having to get her out of trouble. Rinse, repeat. But it's the shenanigans that happen in between that rinse and repeat that make these books all so much fun.
Yep. But great as always.
So let's get into what we read from this past week. Todd, where would you like to begin?
I'm going to start with the book we were looking forward to most, which was Nightwing 118 by Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo, the climax to their entire run since issue 78 or 79, something like that?
Something like that.
But basically, Heartless has pretty much framed Dick Grayson, in his shoot name, going out there and saying that Dick Grayson is Heartless. So he's framed him for it. And now it's Dick trying to figure out, not trying to figure out, but he has a plan to fix that. But because Heartless has stolen all the children of people he's put in strategic places, it's Dick using the Bat family to find them, because once they're free, there's no hold over any of these people. And, Heartless pretending to be, as Dick Grayson is going to go destroy Haven, which is what Dick has built, in Alfred's name. Pretty much, as we say, Dick and the Bat family fix thing. Now it's the showdown between Heartless and Nightwing. And Heartless still thinks he's gotten one up on Nightwing because of the fear toxin that he used, but he might be mistaken. Dick probably fixed all that, and he did. And they go toe-to-toe, and we get the resolution of, what happens to Heartless. Maybe some open-ended stuff with people who are involved with Heartless, some more definitive endings, and Dick Grayson ends up, it basically wraps up this whole run nicely in a nice tight bow that I really like. But there's some bits at the end where Dick does something that I've never really seen before, and they say where he goes to visit, the cemetery, and he ends up talking to his parents, and he says things about the people around him. And there was one touching moment about Babs that I loved, and we get a touching moment with maybe what could happen with the dog, Haley, but, Haley, he ends up, whether he's going to be okay or not. And then we get a nice final panel of Starry Night wrapping up the Nightwing bow. I think it was really good. I loved it. The art is perfect. I think it was everything that we needed. I do feel it was not in a bad way, but it was time for Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo to move on. And this was great. I look forward to the next book, but this is a great run of Nightwing. I have no complaints about it any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, you kind of echo a lot of my sentiments there. The one thing that kind of developed over the last 6 issues or so was that they kind of tweaked Nightwing's origin a bit. Of course, he has a similar origin to that of Batman in that his family, mom, dad, and him were the Flying Graysons and the traveling circus that came to town. The parents end up getting killed. Dick is an orphan, gets taken in by Bruce, and so forth. In the last 6 issues or so, we've learned that it was actually a failed assassination attempt. They weren't trying to kill the parents, that they were trying to kill Dick to try to strong-arm the parents to do what they wanted them to do. The mob the Zuko family, that whole thing.
Right.
So a lot of what we have been going on, like with the big stuff with Heartless and Bloodhaven and everything else, you have this B story that's going on in the background, kind of rewriting, if you will, or just putting a new spin on Dick's origin of sorts, to kind of add that little bit extra to the survivor's guilt that he already had. And again, of course, you have that final matchup, that final beatdown, that final confrontation between Dick Grayson and Heartless, and it's so good. It's those moments there is where Tom Taylor gets who Dick Grayson is and what Nightwing is. And while Nightwing is beating him into submission, he's not beating him to death. He wants him to pay for his crimes. And, Heartless's whole thing is that he takes the hearts from other people and puts them into himself. And he currently had Blockbuster's heart, but Blockbuster had already gone through a heart transplant himself. So now he's got a secondhand heart. Not spoiling too much about the book itself, but it gets to a point where, Dick Grayson gives the speech of like, I don't care what sort of third hand A part you have in you. I'm bringing you to justice. And that encapsulates like what the Bat family people, the good parts of the Bat family bring, no matter how violent, no matter how vicious, no matter how bad things get, we cannot kill. We need to bring these people and prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. Now, obviously in the storytelling things, they get put into Arkham, they get out of Arkham, and we just go through the whole cycle again. But that was a really powerful scene in this book, at least in my opinion.
Yep.
So definitely check that out. I hope this gets like a nice, full, big collection, some sort of oversized hardcover omnibus or whatever. Right. Just because Bruno Redondo, who was the artist for most of it, his art was just so beautiful. I know a couple weeks ago they had put out like an issue that was just all the covers that he did for the entire run.
Mm-hmm.
I did not pick that up. But if they did like a hardcover omnibus something of this entire run, I'd really have to think about picking it up.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. So the other book that I would guess that we were both probably looking forward to most, even though we both landed on Nightwing last week, it would have been Where Monsters Lie, Cul-de-sac #1, written by Kyle Starks with art by Piotr Kowalski, the sequel to the previous Where Monsters Lie series, which ended with Connor Hayes, who his family was killed by the monsters, serial killers, all those sort of archetypes that existed there. He found that they were living in like a little gated community. He goes to take them out as revenge for his parents, but the first series ends with them capturing him under the guise of making him join them. We learned that the first one that we saw, what was the name? Wilmhurst, was just the first of many communities that they have set up like this.
Yeah, Site A kind of a deal.
Site A, right? And a lot of the conflict in this story, we're introduced to all new killers, of course, because most of them were killed off in the previous series. Spoilers. But a majority of this first issue, is the butting heads of Zell, who was like the old lady who ran the previous community, and Barry, who's like the scientist behind everything, or at least who kind of sets things up. We're introduced to Barry's wife, which if you've ever seen Dawn of the Dead or Day of the Dead, that's a fun bit that you have there. But so you just get that power struggle between the two of them as Barry is trying to rebuild the community and Zell is trying to work on getting Connor to be the perfect killing machine. And they've implemented one of the new characters, Vilmos the Dream Master. I don't want to saying that it's a Freddy Krueger pastiche would be doing a disservice by many stretches of many imaginations. But those scenes where Vilmos was trying to affect and manipulate and control Connor were some of my favorite scenes in the book. But it's one of those things where sometimes to get what you want, you have to break the rules, which is like the mission statement of this first issue, and I have a feeling it's going to be the mission statement of this mini series. I really enjoyed the first one. I love horror movie stuff, and when you write a comic book in a world where those archetypes all exist together, and there are people that know what they are, and like say, we need a shape character, we needed this type of character, we needed that type of character. You have the holiday character. All these different things, and I want to give away like all the bits and all the gags and everything else like that, because it is a funny book. There are jokes in there, but it's definitely a horror book, and I very much enjoyed this one. What did you think of this one?
For not the horror guy on this show, man, I love Where the Monsters Lie and Where the Monsters Lie cul-de-sac. My two favorite characters are obviously the Holiday Killer and Mr. Wrinkly. The way they play off each other, just literally like Mr. Wrinkly's like, we need to do this. And it's like something horrid and just blah, blah, blah. And the Holiday Killer's just got his hand in his face in his hand. He's like, you have got to take it down a notch, man. Right? In a room full of killers, somebody telling him that. That's the best. And like how they put the Holiday Killer on blast because he has to step things up and he has to make up like lesser known holidays, not make up, but figure out stuff for lesser known holidays. I'm great on that. And then the kid who survived is running around with the killer from the last run, who just has a teddy bear on his head, which always cracks me up. But all that being said, the bit that they do to sell me on issue 2 at the end, and it doesn't spoil anything, it just says, welcome to Site C, home of the hillbilly slashers, backwoods cannibals, and all the rural killers. I'm sure everything will be perfectly fine here. Oh, and the other monsters send for Connor Hayes' final girl turned special agent out to kill a babysitter to prove the loyalty to them. I'm sure this will also absolutely turn out fine. And I'm like, oh my God, I know this stereotype too. And it's going to go badly, really badly. But I want to see how it's done, Joe. So I'm in for the cannibal killers because I've seen 2 out of the many Texas Chainsaw Massacres, and some people under the stairs and the hills have eyes. I'm getting into this one, Joe. I think this is the one that you're really hitting my wheelhouse for movies. As long as Kyle Stark doesn't do an audition issue, I should be good.
All right. Well, hopefully they get there eventually, and hopefully they give you enough warning.
Yep.
So again, that's what we read from this past week. Let's get into what we're looking forward to coming out this week. If you head over to longboxheroes.com, every Tuesday around noon Eastern time, we put up the pull post, which is a link to all the books that are coming out this week. Whether you get your books in print, whether you get them digitally, whether you get them sent to your home, be forewarned, be forearmed, know what's coming out this week. Todd and I attempt to guess what the other is most looking forward to coming out this week. I am currently in the lead over Todd with 1 correct guess. And this is going to be a tough one. People reach out to me and say, this looks easy. And I say, no, it's not easy. It's never easy.
Right.
Except when Saga comes out. Then it's easy. But Saga's not out this week. I think the book that Todd is looking forward to coming out most this week is Detective Comics 1090.
It is not.
Okay.
Take a swing. What do you think it is?
Nightwing 119?
Yes. Just on the strength of that holiday special with, or the whatever it was, the thing with the Red Lantern cat. I really enjoyed that.
Yes.
And Dan Waters kind of took it up a notch. And I'm actually sad he was at the show and I never got a chance to go over and see him and just talk about that issue. So I'm looking forward to that. Is the book you're looking forward to most Detective Comics 1090?
It is. Tom Taylor moving from Nightwing over to Detective Comics. It's the B title on the Batman series. You know, the Batman name book is and has been like the mainline book for the better part of the last, 13 years. But Tom Taylor did something real special on Nightwing for the last 4.5 years. I hope he can recapture just a bit of that magic over on Detective. Those two books kind of sort of run independently of each other. So we will certainly see how this all works out. But I'm looking forward to seeing how this all goes.
Yeah, me too. So we're all knotted up again, Joe.
Yep, of course. Now, while you're over at longboxheroes.com, of course, be sure to check out past episodes of this show, past episodes of Longbox Heroes After Dark, and our current ongoing Todd and Joe Have Issues, as we are rereading all of Gail Simone's Secret Six from the very beginning all the way back to the Villains United stuff, the Birds of Prey crossover. We're in the home stretch more or less here, outside of like one Doom Patrol crossover issue, but it's pretty much everything. I know there's Action Comics stuff that gets collected as part of this, but it's not written by Gail, so we're not including it.
Mm-hmm.
But before we talk about this week's issue, which is issue number 25, the beginning of a new storyline, Todd, this past weekend at New York Comic Con, got a chance to meet and speak with Gail Simone.
Right.
Did you get a chance to ask Gail any questions?
I did get to ask one question, because in the line you were allowed to get the book signed, the Red Sonja book that she was giving away.
Her new Red Sonja novel that's coming out.
Yep.
They announced that Felicia Day is doing the audio version of it. I know a lot of people are very happy about that.
Becky's looking forward to getting it as a Christmas gift. I ended up getting in line because they ended up, being able to get the book signed that they were giving away, and then you had 3 things that you could get signed on top of it. So if it was like Secret Six or her Uncanny X-Men right now. So they had that bit while they were talking. I said, I don't have anything to sign other than the book for me, so do you mind if I ask you one question? And I ended up talking to them. They knew who we were and I was from in the past, and that we're doing the Secret Six reread. And I said, that issue, which was, I think, last week's issue, right?
Yep, last week, yeah.
The Western one, where it was like they were in the Old West and, blah, blah, blah. It felt like an Elseworld story. What was the idea behind that? What was your focus, your reasoning, whatever? I asked, was it an Elseworld story that was supposed to be like when they do Elseworld annuals? And you just throw it in there. And you don't want to know what it was a 7-word answer, Joe. I just like to do weird things. 8-word answer. I'm sorry. It was just a weird thing. I like to do weird things. You've seen me on Twitter and you've listened to me in my interviews. I just something different. I like to do weird things. And I was like, okay, that's the answer I was looking for. So, here we go. And I moved along. I was like, oh man, I should have did a different question, but that one was great. So
yeah,
that was her answer. She just likes to do weird things.
As perfect as it gets. So this is the beginning of a new story arc where we get to see the intermingling of our mainline team, our Catman team, and so forth, with the B squad, the B team that Bane had gotten put together, that they're out still doing missions while Scandal and Deadshot and Ragdoll are trying to, get Catman back on the team, but Catman has other ideas and designs after what he had done in the previous story arc. And the bit with Deadshot going to Black Alice's dad's doctor and making him lie to Black Alice and say that her father's relapse of cancer was not her fault, where it certainly sounds like it was.
Right. I'll say this. I got goosebumps over that scene because it's awesome. And it's Deadshot helping a child kind of because he has his own kid. You know what I mean? Kind of a deal. But the line where he goes to the doctor and he's like, she did the power thing. And he goes, you're going to do it. Because she might have powers because of that. And you know what? Me too, sort of. Just one, but it's kind of useful. See, I know where the bullets want to go. So you're going to do what I say. Joe, the fact that Deadshot says my arms are hurting from how big the goosebumps are getting. I know where the bullets want to go is so Big Todd energy. I love it.
Oh my goodness. But good stuff there. Catman is attempting to take a trip to Greenland by sacrificing himself to the lions at the zoo.
Right.
And Scandal has to step in and say, no, if you do this, they don't know what's going on inside your head. All they know is that these lions will have sent a man to Greenland.
Mm-hmm.
So they will then put these lions down. So if this is your plan, you need to figure out another plan. Why don't you come along with us?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they do convince Catman to acquiesce and come along with them.
Right. And
go ahead.
I will say the fact, like you said, that Scandal says, if you really want to go to Greenland, I'll do it. I'll take you to Greenland because I'm your friend, but don't do this to the cats. The bit that she's willing, to take that freight, I thought was really cool. And there are a lot of people willing to take each other to Greenland in this book over the last 20-some issues, Joe.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting to see how close they are to doing that to each other. But I thought it was a really cool scene. But go ahead.
So both groups are brought together in the DC Universe version of the Savage Land, maybe?
I think this is, I forget how to pronounce it, but it's going to be where Warlord is from, kind of a deal.
Okay. So they're so Mockingbird sends them on a mission. Right. And their mission is to take over. One group's mission is to take over, and that's Bane's group. Mm-hmm. The other group's mission is to save it from being taken over, and that's the Catman Scandal group. And whoever does their job completely gets their record completely expunged.
Yep. It's really cool. And I like the idea of someone doing Manifest Destiny on a weird land in a comic book world. It's like if we plant our flag first, we take it over. And I thought that was really cool. And I just love how cool Bane is in this. Bane, they finally managed to make Bane cool, Joe.
They're still doing it during this run, and I'm sad that nobody else capitalized on it, Nobody's capitalized on it since. But this is a good issue. Beginning of a new story arc. I'm excited to see the A Squad and the B Squad mix it up.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was issue 25. We got issue 26 for next week, as I mentioned, as we are in the home stretch. I know we haven't had anything come up on it lately, but I would be remiss not to mention, of course, Todd's Art Attack. Just tag the account Todd's Art Attack on Twitter, and we'll be sure to share your art with the rest of the world, whether it be art that you had commissioned or art that you did yourself or art that you picked up or so forth. Maybe if you don't mention it, we won't get any. Mm-hmm. Todd, while you were at New York Comic Con, did you get any new art?
I didn't, but I talked to a lot of artists, Joe. And I did talk to one very special artist who I've had a lot of stuff with in the past. And that would be Kevin, Mr. McGuire. And we ended up having a chat, right? And he was sitting next to Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor. So I talked to Jimmy, and, he's offering, as he said, he's doing it at the show. Anybody who mentioned the All-Star Western omnibus that they're supposedly doing, he'll do a free Jonah Hex in any copy that you bring to him. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. But I say this because somebody shows up in this story in a little bit. And I was talking to Kevin. We were talking about what was going to be the 30th anniversary or whatever for Justice League International, and Keith and JM and him had an idea for a story, and it was going to be the older version. Old man Justice League International is the best way to describe it. And the only thing that they really had hashed out was that Guy was going to be a right-wing radio host, and the other people have done other things, and they had some bits like the JLI was old man JLI was going to fight old man JLA, and they were going to do that bit where it's like in Civil War, Captain America Civil War, where they start each side on the end of a field and they start running at each other, and then halfway through the panels they were all going to stop to catch their breath and then continue running. And I was like, man, I really wanted to read this story. He goes, yeah. He goes, but the kibosh got put on it. And he goes, anyway, Dan, and then he stops talking, right? And I go, what? And he ends up pointing like with his finger. And I look over, and Dan Didio came over to Jimmy's table to talk to him. So they're right next to each other. And he goes, speak of the devil. And they appear. He goes, I'll tell you the story, and it'll come back, and I'll tell you the story. And I go, okay. I said, but I have questions anyway that I always wanted to ask somebody who was involved in JLI. So I come back, and I was like, so what happened? He goes, yeah. He goes, Dan did not want to do that story. And he goes, I couldn't tell you while he was here. I go, I get it. And he goes, I had heard rumors that somebody didn't like. He goes, yeah, Dan said that comics, like superhero comics, shouldn't be funny. And I was like, so he slapped it down. I was like, but he greenlit the JLI retro one. He goes, yeah, so I don't understand it. The only thing we can kind of think was they had done the retro, and they weren't getting Grant Morrison and Harry Porter to come back and do a JLA, and they were doing 70s, 80s, and 90s. So that was the only one that they could use. And it was like, so it got greenlit begrudgingly, and he wouldn't. If you remember, that physical copy was the printing was really bad.
It was like dark. Yeah.
Dark. And they begged for a reprint. And Dan's like, we're not reprinting this book. It is what it is. We'll fix it in digital. And I was like, oh, well, I said, I always thought it was Jeff Johns who kind of poo-pooed the book. He's like, he didn't like Justice League International either. Because I remember him saying things about he wasn't a fan of JLI. So now I'm of the mind it was 2 out of 3 that put JLI in its place. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I won't say that it was Jeff Johns anymore. I'm going to say it's Jeff Johns and Dan killed JLI for me. So
right, and obviously I'm glad. Thank you to Kevin for kind of shedding a little light on that rumor, because obviously the more widely known perceived rumor of that online that it was Dan.
Mm-hmm.
And we had heard rumblings for years and years and years that no, it's not Dan. And there's like, here's these, as you mentioned, here's these proof items that we could point to that it was Dan, or that it wasn't Dan, but it was in fact Jeff Johns. But to know that it was both of them.
Right. And then I asked them the one question that came to mind. I said, would you ever do a JLI story with just JM? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and he goes,
Keith passing earlier this year. Yeah,
right. With Keith gone, he goes, no. He goes, I really wouldn't do it. He goes, I don't think it would be fun anymore, and I don't like the idea of it. And they may do a JLI story somewhere. He goes, but I wouldn't want to be involved. Maybe JM would be involved, but the three of us, I think, once Keith passed away, and I said, well, would you work with JM again? He goes, in a heartbeat. But I wouldn't do JLI. I said, but maybe you do something like Defenders again? And he goes, no, I did that with Keith. Any project me, Keith, and JM did, I would never go back and do again. But I'd be willing to work with JM on something completely new. And I thought that was fascinating. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that's all the time I got to talk to him. And I thought that was really cool. So.
Well, one could only hope, if the internet is to be believed, and I say it's like 60% to be believed, if that era of Justice League, the Justice League International stuff that we're talking about, is going to be any sort of inspiration for what Jimmy Pistol is going to be doing going forward with the cinematic stuff.
Right.
That if that stuff gets reprinted at the very least, the fact that obviously that, Kevin and JM won't do new stories. Hopefully the fact that any of the reprinted stuff, because of the movie, hopefully is a success. Mm-hmm. That they all get a nice check for that, They get a cut of the money. Yeah. But thank you very much for that one as well. Pigskin Pick'ems. I'm still in 39th place.
And rocketing up, probably, right?
No, I dipped to 40, and then after the night games, I stayed at 39. I know you are currently in a 7-way tie for 10th. Mm-hmm. And I know Adam, your co-host on Porch Talk and my co-host over on At Odds with Wrestling, he's in that group of 7 people.
Yeah. So hopefully I can get another push on. I was distracted by things this week. So.
Yes. Well, that's why the group is locked, but get your picks in now. So you don't have to worry about the weekend. If you got big plans, you're traveling, you don't have to worry about it. Your picks are done. This is your reminder. Go do your picks. Todd tweets things out on Thursday to remind you to do your picks. You have no excuse at this point not to miss a week of doing your picks.
Yep.
This week also is the TeePublic sale, 35% off any and all designs over at our TeePublic store, which is linked up in the show notes, of course, with every episode. Get designs inspired by this show, by After Dark, by the soon-to-be-named network, by other shows in the network, on everything from decorative throws to cell phone covers to notebooks, and I think you can get some shirts and hats too. Why not? 35% off from now until Monday. So it's a little bit longer of a sale this time around for the end of October, but definitely do check that out. Support us. You can also support us by making any and all of your eBay purchases through our eBay affiliate link. This page contains affiliate links for eBay. We may receive a small commission on purchases that you make. You could use this affiliate link anytime you want to buy anything on eBay and support the show at the same time.
Yeah.
But the best and most important way to support the show would be signing up for our Patreon over at patreon.com/longboxheroes. As little as $1 a month, you get all of these things. You get access to our exclusive Discord, soon-to-be-named network Discord. All the shows in the network have their own pages in there. All the interests of all those shows are spread out around there. Interact with the hosts of the shows and other listeners of the show. Get to meet lots of new and interesting people on the internet. You also get 2 bonus shows every month from Todd and myself. One, Previewing the Past, where we look at 30 years ago this month's previews catalog. I had a little free time on my hands, so November's already up there, but we're not going to be recording November for at least another 2 weeks or so, right?
Right.
But Comic Book Oddities is up there. We just dropped that last week. That is our discussion of the Dark Horse comic, highest grossing Jean-Claude Van Damme movie of all time in Time Cop. Because there is a tangential wrestling connection there, since it is the owner of AEW, Tony Khan's favorite movie of all time. Wink. Entertainment purposes only. We had Adam, aforementioned, from Porch Talk and At Odds with Wrestling on. I think we had a lot of fun. And as we had mentioned before, the schedule for the rest of the year for Comic Book Oddities is November. We have Supergirl, the 1984 Helen Slater movie, and December is going to be the cinematic Christmas movie event of 2024, and that would be Kraven.
Yes.
And then for 2025, we'll be back to spinning the wheel, added new things, and so forth. You also get access to full scans, high-quality, expertly done scans of those previews catalogs that we talk about on Previewing the Past. $5 a month is going to get you those 2 bonus shows 2 weeks before everyone else, and it's going to get you After Dark 2 days before everyone else, so that you can listen to these shows in the correct listening order.
Yep.
Now, let's get into some TV talk, as we have the most recent episode of Agatha to start with. Yes?
Yes.
All right. And this episode was more or less what I thought it would be, which would be how the teen, the kid, whatever, Billy, became Billy. How he became Wanda Maximoff's son, Billy Maximoff, William, and tying things directly into the events of WandaVision. Now, we do get the bit where... what was it? The guy who in the WandaVision stuff as Agatha's husband in all of that?
/ Scarlet Witch's fake brother?
Yes.
That was Ralph Boner.
Right. So he comes back as a guy that Billy meets on Reddit, talking about conspiracy theories about what really happened with the whole town and everything. And... yeah, he's kind of unhinged.
Though I would watch his, if Marvel or Disney Plus did a 45-minute one-man show that he does, I would watch it. He mentions, he's like, you know what, either I can give you discount tickets to one-man show or a gratuity. And I'm like, I want to watch that one-man show. So,
and essentially what happens is we learn is whatever the events of this were, is that William, who is just some kid, they're driving by. There's the disturbance. He and his family are driving by. Billy Maximoff ends up inhabiting his body, which leads Billy to believe that his brother Tommy is out there somewhere, and hopefully at the end of the Witch's Road is where Billy will be reunited with his brother.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what his motivation is for going on this whole mission, aligning everyone together. And yeah, so we're getting motivations, we're getting origins, we're getting all of this. So I've been enjoying the show. Like I said, my stuff is not as comprehensive because I do end up watching this with my wife. So I'm not sitting there taking notes while we're taking care of this, while I'm watching this, rather.
Right. I don't really have a lot of notes. Takeaway from is I like how all the other witches from the coven weave into his life somehow was kind of cool. And then because Tourette's witch ended up putting the sigil on him, kind of a deal. And then in the end, like we kind of see, remember how we were seeing the first episode of him breaking into Agatha's house from her point of view, where they were in the TV show, but now they were seeing it from his point of view, where she's doing all the stuff in the house, but she thinks she's at the police station, and it looks absolutely terrible in a good way, if that makes any sense. I like that kind of a bit of it, where they were just doing the same scenes from a different side. But yeah, I'm with you. I like this show, but I don't do a deep dive into stuff on it. I'm the same way, looking forward to more episodes. That's all.
Right. How you say that you would watch the Ralph Boner's character's one-man show.
Mm-hmm.
If they did a full season of just Catherine Hahn playing the police procedural character, I would watch a whole season of that.
Okay, fair enough. Though I only have to watch one, you have to watch 10, so.
Right. So that's Agatha. Let's get into Penguin?
Sure, why not?
All right. Now, every week we come on here when we talk about the Penguin, except for last week, or the week before's episode, which was the the Sophia origin episode, right?
Right, her tour de force episode.
Right. I was posed the question: is the Penguin this much of a failure, or is he playing everyone?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I feel as though it could go either way. This week, I don't know. I think he might be a failure.
This week, I honestly think other times he's been making the correct guesses or making the good choices. This time he messed up. So
yeah,
he messed up big.
He messed up quite a bit this week. Yeah. So obviously he gets so I'll say, so he torches the fancy car. He mentions that there's a blind spot in the Maroney family, and Todd, you know me, there's a son on the Maroney family who is talking a big game, showing the cool tattoos he's getting, where he's getting the tattoos. And where did Penguin find this information, Todd?
I didn't see. Was it on the Clip Clop or something?
It was on actual shoot by name TikTok.
What?
Yes. So
should have been a fake TikTok.
Oh, you know how much I hate that. So the fact that they actually did shoot TikTok for the episode already, we're working at 10 stars, right?
What if it was in the Gotham Dome, Joe? But anyway.
I think I could forgive like the fake names of sport, like fake sports teams, because like everything is already like, it's not New York and it's not New Jersey or whatever it is. It's the fake names of the cities. I actually had a friend of mine who's not a comic book person reach out to me this week and ask me why DC still does this. I said, well, they're grandfathered in. They can't just change it now from Gotham City, Metropolis, and all the other cities and so forth that they've established to like just make it in line with like actual names of actual cities. It's too late. And he's like, but why did they do it in the first place? And I'm like, well,
It was 1938, and it was a different time.
It was a different time, and you can't judge, right?
Right. But I will say this. I was doing the joke. If you gave this a 10-star match, how many stars would you give it if it was in the Gotham Dome instead of the Tokyo Dome? That's all.
I get what you're saying now.
Right.
Okay.
Gotcha.
It would still be 10.
Gotcha.
So Penguin and his goons show up, and they grab the younger Maroney kid that's there. They're going to do a trade-off. With the Maroney family, the mother, what's his name? Sal's wife is the one that kind of got the drop on Penguin and Sophia 2 episodes ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, you give me those mushrooms, I'll give you your kid back. They meet up somewhere. The kid's soaking wet. They send him over. The truck is there. Todd, how did you feel about what happens next when, of course, they attempt to double-cross the Penguin, but the Penguin was ready for them?
You mean when he throws his lighter onto the gas that it wasn't water? It was gas, and he burns Nadia and Kurgan Marone's son to death. That was an intense scene, but then the fire extinguishers go off and maybe hurt those precious, precious mushrooms, Joe. So little good, little bad. You take them both, and there you have the facts of life, Joe.
Well, Penguin ends up saving about 2 to 3 of the plants. He needs to figure out where to put them. He's trying to get his mom out of the house. He gets the mom to Crown Point. But the crony guy, the bad guy or whatever it is, sees Vic sneaking her in, but we never see any movement there in this episode. Mm-hmm. I'm sure nothing bad will come of that later. Going through some of his old stuff, the Penguin finds an old trolley token.
Right.
And decides that he's going to set up base in the underground trolleys that they had shut down years and years ago. They got a generator. It's cool and damp down here. The mushrooms will go great. Everything's going to work out perfect. Until it doesn't.
Right. I'll say this because you say it was whoever it was, Slug or whatever his name was. He was the bad influence from Vic when he was a youth, and he's trying to get his mother, Penguin's mother, into the apartment, right. And he sees them. So he's the guy who's going to stooge off where they are, and they're going to be. But I think that's the red herring, because when he has his throwdown with Eve, he makes the mistake of telling her where he's going. If you go back and watch it, she goes, I have an apartment in Crown Heights. We can go to it. She goes, I'm not going. We're going our separate ways. And Penguin kind of throws his fit. That's so when they get ratted out, you're going to find out it was Eve, not that kid. Because he was dumb enough to tell her, if you're gonna say tomorrow, Joe, if everything goes wrong with this podcast and we have to hightail it out of here, and people are on my tail, and I go, we're leaving, I'm not telling you where we're going until you get in the car with me. Because if I don't and leave you behind, even if you don't want to rat me out, they're going to torture you and you're going to rat me out. Never tell anybody where you're going until they're right beside you. So Eve's going to be a dirty rat, Joe.
That'll be a real bummer. That'll be yet another in the long line of Penguin bad decisions.
Right. But at least Sophia won't be walking in his mother's house, like you said.
Yeah.
It'll be a different place that they're waiting for him now.
Same scenario, different location.
Right. When I'm giving it to you, I'm just laughing that I don't think it's going to be that house. But then I guess that only leaves Sophia to talk about.
Yeah, I figure you're a big Sophia fan, so I'll let you handle all that, huh?
Right. So Sophia ends up, the aftermath of the house, and all the cops show up. And boy, oh boy, did the chief of police smoke a whole bunch of cigarettes before this episode, Joe, because I wasn't sure what he was saying. I was like, get a different actor for that role. I know he's supposed to have a voice that kind of grates on you, but dear God, that was awful. So who was the guy? I lost it. That was the second in command. Can't think of his name.
John Vitti. John
Vitti. Because they think Vitti did it and they're looking for him, but she really has him tied up in the catacombs. thing, and she wants him to use the money that she knows her father hid, kind of a deal. And I like, they kind of set it up where she pours water on him and says, like, you're going to suffer from the cold because your organs are going to want to fail, but your body's going to do everything to survive, which I thought what they were making you think they did to Maroney's son, but it turned out to be gas, if that makes any sense. I was like, okay, They were trying to red herring you. So she ends up, he ends up talking, but like says, I'm going to work for you because I loved your mother. And she goes, yeah, but you still work for my father. Yeah. So, but I need you and the money to get all the people together and we'll make this work. And he goes, okay, I give in. And they go into the house and she brings all the muscle that was nobody's because the upper-ups are dead. She says, we're going to have a truce with the Maronis and we're going to get this over with and we're going to pay you all the way my father didn't. Viti kind of, I don't think this is good. And she puts him in his place with a 44 caliber argument kind of a deal. And then it's, I guess, would you call it socialist mafia? I don't know, because she's going to share everything with everybody. But Oz put a hit out on Kurgan Maroney, and you think he's dead, but he's actually really alive coming after Oz. And Sophia ends up saying the Falcone family's dead. We're naming it after my mother, who was a Gigante, I guess was the family name. And now she's teaming up with the Maronis to take down Oz. So Oz has got it coming from every direction now, Joe. It's not going to be good.
Right, and this is after, was it the head of the Maronis gets out and learns that his wife and son have been killed by the Penguin. Mm-hmm. The failed attempt that Penguin tried to pay off prison guards to kill him while he was in the joint is how he ends up getting out. So now you have these two people working together with a definitive grudge against the Penguin. What's he gonna do?
I don't know. He doesn't have many people left on his side, so I'm looking forward to more episodes. Come on, give them to me now.
Yeah, so I think we got, 3 more episodes of this, and I think 2 more episodes of Agatha, maybe?
No, it's the same episodes of it. Because Agatha has one extra episode in the season, but they dropped 2 for the first episode.
Okay.
So Penguin has 8, Agatha has 9. They should stop the same week for us.
Okay.
And then they did announce, I don't know if we talked about, they announced the street date for the Daredevil show in March.
Right, which isn't until March, which is okay. Obviously Venom 3 comes out this weekend.
Yes.
I got no interest in that.
We should go see the Venom 3 Joker 2 double feature.
No.
Okay.
If a theater around here was showing all 3 Venom movies, maybe I would go and do that.
Oh, that would be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. That would be a nice waste of my life.
But do you have the time for that?
Surprisingly, no, actually.
You'll make the time, Joe. You'll make time for Venom, and they're good wigs.
Yes. There's supposed to be some sort of Spider-Man animated thing that's coming out, maybe.
Right.
That I haven't heard a single thing about, but it's still, according to IMDb and everything else, has a November 4th release date or November 2nd release date. So I don't know. We'll see about that if that's real.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next things after that is the 1-2-3 punch of Skeleton Crew, Creature Commandos, and Kraven. But Kraven's going to be taken care of on the Patreon. Yeah.
I don't even know what Skeleton Crew is and if I'll be interested in that, but we'll see.
That's Star Wars,
Is it a cartoon?
No, it's live action.
Oh, okay. That changes things because I don't know anything about a Skeleton Crew.
Jude Law is the lead of it. It says 4 kids make a mysterious discovery on their home planet that leads them to get lost in a strange and dangerous galaxy.
Goonies on Tatooine. Okay, got it.
Okay. But we shall see. I'll give it a whirl. We watched and we've enjoyed the Star Wars stuff that they've put out. Hopefully this will be more of the same,
Yep.
But that's all we got, man. It's been a full week of shows. Full, After Dark was big. This was big. We're giving you bang for your buck for the free podcast that we put out every week here.
It was an eventful week, so.
Yes, absolutely. So for Todd, this is Joe closing out episode 1. I'm sorry, 1. I'm leaving that in. Flub. Closing out episode 733 of Longbox Heroes. And we'll see y'all here next week.
Remember, be a faucet, not a drain.
Woo!
You're listening to the soon-to-be-named network, the Lamborghini of podcast networks.
The Rob is a Longbox hero. The Rob is a Longbox hero. He gives us five stars.